psychologist with New Method Wellness.
Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome to Stating the Obvious with Dr. D at New Method Wellness. Today, our fabulous guest is Dr. Lauren. Am I saying this right? Costine?
Costine, yeah.
Costine. Okay. She is the author of Lesbian Love Addiction. She is a licensed clinical psychologist, author, relationship coach, and international presenter. She is the CEO and clinical director of Awakened Therapy Center. I'm dying to hear more about that. A holistic and LGBTQ plus affirmative psychotherapy group practice she co-founded with her wife Vanessa in 2020. She was one of the founding members of Antioch University, Los Angeles LGBT specialization. Wow. And has created several LGBTQ plus affirmative programs in addiction treatment centers. Her first book, so telling me more to come, Lesbian Love Addiction, Understanding the Urge to Merge and How to Heal When Things Go Wrong, was published in 2015. She's currently working on her second book, A Self-Actualization Guide for Lesbians, Queer Women, and Non-Binary Folks. She also offers an online coaching course for lesbians and queer women looking to shift their dysfunctional relationship patterns. Wow. So we're going to post her website, where to find her. Go to each website for free offers, such as free pages from her book on Radical Self-Care Toolkit. That's just like, I could go a million places with that.
I'm so glad. I love it too. I love going to a million places.
Me too. That's it. We were just laughing. The producer, Anna, and I were laughing about how we always have this agenda and then it goes wacky.
It goes wherever, right?
Yes, yes. Okay, so I consider myself an expert on love addiction. And
Oh,
when
fabulous.
when I was about 9.5 years sober, I checked into the Meadows to get treatment for love addiction because I knew I was either going to drink or deal with my love. Oh, I didn't know that. I take that back. What I knew was I couldn't leave and I couldn't stay and I wanted to drink all the time. But I was going to lots of meetings, working a program, in therapy, blah, 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 but very stuck. So I learned a lot about it. I teach empowering women, blah, blah, blah. I completely missed so many things about the lesbian aspect of it. And so when I read your book, I went in like, yeah, I probably know all this because that's kind of how I am. I know everything. But I was like, double oxytocin? Are you kidding me? I had never considered that. That's like the room on fire.
I know exactly. It is. It's so
How did you
intense.
come up with that? You are really brilliant.
Oh gosh, thank you. Well, I am in recovery for love addiction myself, and when I was deep in like withdrawals, detox, trying to find, really figure out what the hell's going on. I started reading everything I could. And of course, it was all for just straight women and straight folks. But I also am a geek about the brain. Like, I'm
Right,
just a
right.
geek. I love the brain. And I'm a big nature nurture person. Like, I'm very psychodynamically trained and I can get into someone's childhood forever. And I love the deep dive into all of like, what happened in my child? What did I not get that I'm seeking now to repair and fix or medicate or whatever? But I also really, I think as a sort of kind of science geek I can be, I was like, but there is the nature piece, right? And there's so many components of the nature piece. So I really started looking into the female brain. Now, obviously, we're talking about a cisgender female brain, but there was one woman that was doing research on the female brain at the time, like literally no one else. And when she was in med school,
Who
she
was
found
that?
her name is Dr. Brizadine, and she's
Okay.
done two books, one on the female brain, then she did one on the male brain, which was really great. And she did one on menopause, which is also fabulous.
Mm.
But um, she was in med school and she went up to her professor and she's like, why is all the data on men? And the
Duh.
professor says to her, well, we feel like the menstrual cycle is going to skew the data, so we're not looking at women. And she was like, okay, that's wrong. Totally not okay. And she created her own.
Wow. Isn't that incredible? Somebody has the nerve to say that out loud.
Exactly. I mean, we know the misogyny and
Right,
sexism
right, right,
coming
right, right.
from. It's like, it's just beyond. So she started looking at the female brain, and that's when she really, she really looks into our hormones as well as the hormone system and the neuronal system, and how do they interact. And she started saying, well, when we bond, we emit a lot of oxytocin when we breastfeed and when we fall in love. And I was like, ding, 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 ding. Okay, so no one's talking about this. You've got two women mainly attracted to each other with love addiction piece. Now they're like, and then we, imagine. I mean, I just sort of visually seeing the
That's what I
oxytocin
said. It's like the room on fire.
floating between us.
Yeah,
You
like, oh my
know,
God, you can't get much higher. I couldn't get much higher.
no,
That's about as high as I could get.
that is the highest I've ever gotten to, was falling in love with another woman like that. With, I mean, I just couldn't see straight.
Yeah, just
I was,
oxytocin everywhere. You're just like, ah.
and
You
I
know,
was a
I
I
nursed.
was the next. Go ahead.
No, no, I was just saying I nursed my oldest son, and this is like before I knew about. Well, I nursed other both my kids, but when I was nursing my oldest son, I said to Dr. Pat Allen, I said, I can't stop. He's two. He's walking and talking. It feels like taking Valium. And she said, you're addicted to the oxytocin. We would like sneak in the other room. He's like full sentences, super,
Right,
and we're
talking,
like in the other
walking.
room, and I'm just like, I gotta stop this. I gotta stop this. I gotta stop. But it was so addictive.
So yeah, so you experienced it in two ways,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the difficulty in stopping it. And I think a lot of us who have this capacity for these kind of highs,
What
are like,
a great way to put it.
it's so hard to stop. So I was one of these people. I didn't get past a relationship past 2.5 years. Like, I couldn't really make it beyond that. But man, could I fall in love.
Mm.
Like, and that period of time. And then I'm an idealist and everything's perfect and I'm missing the red flags. So, so this is a big piece of how that came out. And then, with the LGBTQ affirmative psychotherapy that I studied and then helped work on it at Antioch. It was really kind of looking at our unique trauma of growing up in a heterosexist world. Like, what does that do to us? Obviously, each generation has a different experience. I mean, I came of age in the 80s. It was the backlash period. It was bad. It was not a fun period to come out or anything. But at the same time, we're also marinating in thousands of years of sexism and misogyny. So I'm like, we've got to look at those two things when we're a lesbian. It's just like,
I just was reading The Velvet Rage,
yes.
and one of the things, like the heteronormative culture that we grew up in, I'm 58. I don't know how old you are. I would
Oh,
not.
I'm 58 as well.
Oh my gosh, you look great.
So do you.
Thank you. So anyway, this heteronormative culture that I didn't really understand until one of the biggest loves of my lives came out as gay. And the smallest things, like passing out Valentine's Day cards when you're in second grade. And people say, who's your Valentine? You can't say, you couldn't say, Susie's my Valentine. I love her. I want to marry her. Somebody said to me, and I'm just not outing them, but they said to me when they were very young, like 6, do you think I'll marry a boy or a girl when I grow up? And I didn't know what to say. And I said, well, only you and God know that. I can't know that. And they said, well, my tummy feels funny when I'm with this person, but I think this person is really cute. And I said, oh, maybe you'll like both. Lots of people like both. And they were like, oh, people like both? I go, yeah, people like both. They're like this little tiny kid, But it never occurred to me, like I said, the Valentine's things, like, oh, you couldn't say, I love Susie and I want to give Susie a Valentine. That wasn't a thing when we were 10.
No. And also, when parents are all gathering around, the kids are like looking at the boy and girl going, oh, they're going to get married one day. Aren't they
Mhm,
cute together? Never doing it for anyone of the same
mhm.
gender,
No.
like ever, you know? So,
Mhm,
and you know, I'm 58, right? We were born in the 60s. What were our TV shows?
mhm,
Father Knows Best, Happy Days, I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched. I mean, we were just
mhm,
marinated in this, like, you know, women just take care of the men, and like they're so smart, and they're so important, and we're like, well, you know, I mean, we just all of this is just seeping into our psyches, and we don't even know it.
All around us, everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So that piece is also really important around our love addiction,
When
you
I
know.
was 10 years old, Lauren, my dad said, it's too bad you're so pretty. You could have been a doctor. You're really smart, Deanna. So, right, look at your face. Right then and there, I got the message you could be smart or you could be
Right.
pretty,
Right.
one or the other. And pretty is much more valuable.
Yes. And that's exactly the message I got too. It was always when I walked into the door with my parents, oh, you look so great. The message was always like, I really care how you look.
Mhm.
You know, oh, it's great you're doing all this school. And there was kind of some mixed messages too, because my mom was in this position. She was a housewife. She didn't have options. So she was saying to me, I want better for you. I really
Mhm.
do. At the same time, you know,
You should
but
lose some
actually,
weight.
right. And your capital is your look.
Yes. Yeah. And
Capital
hope
is your
you
look.
should marry a great guy with a lot, a good career. And
Yep. And that's where your options are. And that's your capital is your look way more than anything else. And it
And
was
we're
a
really not
confusing.
that far off from that today. Like, I like to think that we are, but I work with a lot of people from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different cultures, and they're always like, oh, no, no, that still exists. I'm like, what?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, the bubble here,
Mm,
right, in
mm,
Southern California
mm.
is,
I live in Orange County. Don't tell me about
oh,
it. There's no bubble down here.
so there's no bubble down there.
No, I live behind the orange curtain, girl.
I know. Yeah. My dad's down there, so I know it. I know it.
But
But
it's
yeah,
better. It's better. It's like not, some places.
it's not the South.
Right.
It's
I
not.
just stopped myself from saying that.
Are we not allowed to say that?
No, you could say it. I'm just like, trying to be polite.
And I mean, when you work in treatment centers, obviously you get folks from all over the country, and you start
Mhm.
seeing it's like you can, you know, the bubble can be burst quickly because you're like, or sort of this perception of, you know, people are not experiencing this as much as we did. In some areas of the world, they are.
For sure. I have people come here from other places that are less open-minded, and they will come out as trans while they're here and move here. And I'm like, your whole life you knew this? You've been stuck in that your whole life? And this is the first place you that's ever been okay. Enza is the person who started our LGBTQ plus program here.
Oh, I'm so glad.
She came to the board and she said, you could offer this if you add these things. And we were like, yeah, we believe in those things. Let's add them.
That's so great.
That was all her. We weren't doing those things proactively before her. And we were like, those are all good things. Let's do that.
Oh, that's so great. Well, because you're getting the clients.
No
So
matter where you are.
exactly.
It's
And
like I
then,
have colleagues in psychology that tell me I don't work with addicts. I'm all, I think you do.
yeah, you do. They're going to be there.
Yeah, they're coming.
Yeah. So, I am really grateful that I would have the opportunity to write this book, and that it really, the whole flow was amazing. I got the agent right away. It got picked up right away. It was really like needed to get out there. Obviously, the way the sort of universe carried it, it was, yeah. And this other book I'm working on is been at least 10 years making, and it's going to be, I started it before the other book, but it's going to be way better now that I've waited because there's so many more things I've done myself and learned. And, I'm the kind of psychologist that I do everything that I'm always testing on myself. Anything that I like to kind of then start using or introducing people to. So,
I always tell my patients, I won't ask you to do something I won't do.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just not, I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Sometimes they say, the newer people, they're like, why are you always testing me? You don't trust me, like with a UA. And I go, well, I'll go do a UA. You do a UA, then I'll do a UA. Let's do UAs today.
That's great. That must put them at ease.
I guess, I don't know, but I don't, I think anybody who's not willing to do a UA is probably positive.
Exactly. They've got to be hiding something.
Yeah, just like do
Yeah,
it. I've heard it said people that have nothing to hide, hide nothing.
that's that's a good point. I like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I loved your book. I just couldn't get enough of it. I loved that, like I said, the oxytocin thing just cracked me up. Like I'm such an oxytocin addict.
Me too. I so get it. I so get it. And the thing is, when you're sober, what I think was really interesting for me is, I got sober and then I realized, well, I can get high naturally. Like I don't actually have to relapse
Right.
because I can feel really amazing on my own juices. Just
But was that a conscious thing or an
not at
unconscious?
all. Not at all. It was definitely not conscious at all, but it unconsciously informed the drive to like keep doing the same thing over and over again in certain ways, just like, and then the bottom, like you were saying with yourself, the bottom is so excruciating.
I
It's
would
so
rather
excruciating.
detox from heroin 10 more times, because I have, than ever withdraw from love addiction. I'll do it 10 times.
Yeah. At least you can get into detail, pump you up with thing and you sleep through it, right? There
And you
is
know it's going to
no
end. And
go for it. There's no sleeping through this. There's
mm,
no there's no numbing out from this. And then if you're also getting out of a relationship that had really destructive qualities or some emotional abuse stuff, then you've got a detox piece. And then you've got the withdrawal just from the best friend, the addiction to the person, the everyday contact with them. Like you've got there, I mean, and I've got folks in my practice almost all the time that are in a withdrawals
mm.
from love addiction.
Like how many at a time? I mean,
I've
how does
got
that,
like I've got 3 right now.
wow. What's that like for you to experience? Like, I wrote my dissertation on vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue working with sex trafficking victims because it was a
Right.
really, well, I was just saying that when I did that work, I went to therapy twice a week and a meeting every day when I was seeing sex trafficking victims.
Right. Yes.
So, and I know I have a friend that runs a DBT clinic, and she said she will only work with one client who has symptoms of borderline personality disorder at a time.
Oh,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a whole thing for
so,
sure.
so I'm wondering like how many people you take on, or if how that affects you who are in active withdrawal.
It's definitely it's definitely hard. I mean, I think what ends up being rewarding is when they start taking all the steps to help their system regulate and
Mhm.
then they get on the session and there seems to be some glimmer of hope and I can kind of keep telling them, I can also hold that hope for them and
Mhm.
keep telling them, look, roughly this may be 3 months, everyone's different, but like this particular, but look, there is an end. And also for me, in the Slaw book, when he wrote that incredible paragraph on really the beauty of withdrawals, like I know it was an alchemical process for me, and I was an incredibly stronger person at the end of it. Like something transformed something fundamental transformed inside of me, and I was never going to have to be like I was before. And I don't think you can go through that without this deep pain.
Oh, yeah. Well, I used to work with Dr. Pat Allen, and she said to me one time, you know, when you're on your way to buy dope or on your way to the bar, your brain starts releasing dopamine and all kinds of
Already.
happy because you're on your way there. And she said, every time you see, smell, hear, touch, your senses get a whiff of him. For me, it was a him. Um, you're gonna start the process all over again. So
Exactly.
when I left my first husband, I did no contact for 6 months. And like I would have my sister take the baby to visit him, and he would meet with my sister because I was so terrified that I would just smell him and go, you should move back in.
Of course. Well, you would. Or
There's the
he,
bonding. There's the bonding.
right,
I'm
right.
already getting that oxytocin just from hugging you, smelling you, feeling.
Right. It's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. And the complete cutoff. And nowadays, there's this insane social media. So you have to like cut off their
Mhm.
friends. And like, so this whole process of like, how do I help you not get a ding from them? How do they not come into your universe on any level for a long period of time so your system can go back to
Mine moved
normal?
out of the country.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
So, I mean, I wasn't running into him at the grocery store, and it what that part was such a gift for me.
Yeah, that's as much as you can do that, however that looks. I always recommend that.
And
Just
I remember telling my sponsor, I said, I need to pick up my makeup from my drug dealer. And she pulled out a $50 bill. I don't know where she got a $50 bill back then. She goes, go buy new makeup.
oh, what an amazing
And
sponsor.
that's the time when you could buy makeup for $50.
Right? It's my whole bag.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the other thing I was going to tell you was like SLAA has been around for a long time, but no one knew about it. And I met
Mm.
this sponsor who called it menism.
Oh,
And we worked the steps on it in 1989.
wow, that's amazing.
And she wasn't like trying to start a new thing. She wasn't a therapist. It had just affected her that way.
Mhm.
And she said, I'm recognizing that there are some of us that are as addicted to these relationships as we are to drugs and alcohol. And I was like, what? And she said, let's do the steps on it and see what happens.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's
Yeah.
weird, huh?
That program saved me. Saved me. I mean, I needed so much support at that time,
Mm.
and my withdrawals, I feel like they lasted for 6 months. And
Mm.
I really, at
Or
one
years, or
point,
6 years.
right, yeah. I said to I think I called my dad. My mom had passed a couple of years before then. I called my, I was in deep trauma. I think I'm going crazy. And my dad doesn't understand this stuff. He's like, what? Like, what do you, I'm like, look, I need a help. I need to go somewhere. Or I'm going to take myself into a hospital. And he was like, okay, I don't know what you mean, but like, what do you need me to do? I'm like, I actually feel like I'm going nuts. So when my clients say that to me, I'm like, that's totally normal.
Mhm.
That's how you feel. It's not going to happen. But
Mhm.
yes, you feeling that way completely makes sense. What I can keep holding for you is this will end one day, and do everything you can to feel better in this moment. Do what you need to do. Go to SLAA, do the steps, lie down on the ground, put your legs up, just do all of these things you can. I mean, I was started going to a body worker. I was putting rice bags on my body, just like, because my central nervous system, my parasympathetic nervous system would not downregulate.
Mhm.
It would not calm down.
Mhm.
It just would not. It was like so stuck in this position.
How long
Uh,
were you with that person that you went into withdrawal with?
well, it was interesting. So this person, I have two qualifiers. So the first qualifier, she and I were back and forth for years.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Like in the book.
in the book, exactly.
Mhm.
And so I started looking into love addiction when I was finally done. When that But I didn't go through withdrawals because it was so back and forth, and I started losing trust in her, and I wasn't guarded, and so there wasn't like this insane withdrawal with her at all. But there was like something is wrong, and I can analyze her all day, but I'm the common denominator here. So that was a really important aha moment. But I wasn't done. I wasn't ready. So yeah, my mom passed during that time. It was very traumatic. And then this other woman that I had, found very attractive for a while comes along, and she and I start dating. And that one's the one that took me to my knees. And that's the one where I went through major withdrawals. We weren't together that long. Like I mean, it was maybe 2 years, but it was a couple things because I had
But
already
like,
like
I think in love addiction time, that's like 2 centuries.
it is right. It is.
It's
It
like
was a
dog
lot.
years, like dog years.
Exactly. I know.
Love addiction years.
I love that concept. It is long. And the thing was though, I had stopped intriguing. So one of
Mm,
the things I had
mm.
done sort of in sobriety in my major love addiction phases is I would be connecting with my ex while I was dating somebody else, or I would, be flirting with like there was always thing kind of going on, and it was out of integrity. It was not pretty. It's not anything I'm proud of. I stopped doing all of that. I also stopped fantasizing about people that I found attractive that I couldn't have, like celebrities. Like I had this huge crush on Kristen Stewart for like so much so that
Who
one woman
doesn't?
I know, right? And it was way before she came out, but I knew. And one woman I was dating to this day hates Kristen Stewart because I
That's
had this.
so, because you were like somebody. Oh my, I have a cousin who's a lesbian, and she was obsessed with Drew Barrymore. And she had like this Drew Barrymore box and this Drew Barrymore this, and this is like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And her wife hated Drew Barrymore.
Right, exactly. That's my it's so funny. And I used to watch the Twilight movie and just like get high.
Yeah,
I could get
yeah.
high off the Twilight movie.
Oh
It was
yeah. Oh yeah.
just like sit there.
And
And
all that intrigue. That's
oh
like intrigue on
yeah.
steroids.
Oh, ended up reading those women's books. God, I can't remember her name right now. Who did all the Twilight? And I read one little thin one.
Stephanie Meyer, was it
Yes,
Stephanie Meyer?
she is a love addict writer. You can read her book, and if you're deep in your love addiction, get high as a kite. It's insane.
Well,
So anyway,
isn't all media like
so I
so
mean, you start
geared
seeing it
towards love
everywhere.
addiction?
Yes,
I
yes.
I like want to kick my clients when they start telling, well, he's not doing this. Like I go, he's not getting you high. You're talking. Well, I saw this movie and this. I'm like, shut the. Oh my God, you're not talking about a real world.
At all. And the idea, all these rom-coms early on, they were so simple, right? The the love avoidant would always just come back without doing any work and have this epiphany that they have to be with this person.
Does that ever happen?
No, of course not. Love
And
avoidants do not do that.
look at all the people, like, let's say in my world, okay, let's say in a heteronormative world, look at all the people that are like that the culture is attracted to. Like, let's just say like Brad Pitt, for example. Such an avoidant. Like all of us are like, oh my God, that's the guy that'll never look at me, and like, how can I get his attention?
And they're so beautiful and charming often. And like,
For a minute.
for a minute, and they can just suck you in, and you really think it's different, and this one you'll be different and it'll be special, and all the things that are promised. And look, they're suffering too, but in a different way.
I've been
You know,
avoided to people as well, and it's painful
so
too.
have I. I have
And
too.
it's very painful. And
Yeah,
when I went to the Meadows, I was there for 90 days for a 30-day program.
that's amazing. So, did you go to the Willow House?
I know I went to Pia's place,
Okay, got you.
but I
So
don't think it's
now,
around anymore.
yeah, they call it the Willow House now, and you have to go for 45 days. I can't get anyone to go do anything for 45 days. I mean,
I've got way too much going on to save my life. No.
right. But they have a 5-day program.
Oh,
That's a
wow. That's
lot
good to know.
it's a lot easier to sell, a lot easier to sell. I don't think that's long enough. When you're deep in withdrawal, you need at least 2 weeks, but it's better than nothing. And then On-Site has one too in Tennessee.
I have heard of
So
that.
yeah, so those are two good ones. So when I was doing all of that, I went to two places. I went to On-Site, but all they had then was Living Center. They didn't have the Love Addiction one. But
Okay.
I geared it, I talked with
Mm-hmm,
my facilitator, and I
mm-hmm.
geared my whole treatment plan to the Love Addiction piece. And then I found one in Petaluma that's no longer there. It was called Five Sisters. That was
I
10
have
or 11
heard
days.
about that.
It was amazing. But she closed it down. She closed it down. She was ready to retire. But it was in this like beautiful home, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just beautiful. It was amazing. And that's where I learned the pause button. I'm such an addict and I was such a codependent that I didn't know how to say no. Oh, let me think about it. Like I really learned how to say, oh, I need to think about that. I'll get back to you. I was so busy like trying to just take care of everyone and make everything okay. And so anyway, there's a lot of beautiful programs out there for not a lot, but there's a few
Mm-hmm.
that I highly recommend,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, for anyone really, really struggling. And then of course, SLA, it's essential. And then a professional that knows how to work with it,
Mm.
like
It's
yourself, right? Obviously, you
like
must
us
help.
because
Yeah,
it's not, I mean, it's not easy. And it takes a while to bring it up. Like, hey, I'm noticing this pattern that I'm noticing this pattern that this might be a thing for you. It's interesting to me when I give somebody the withdrawal reading and they're like, who gave you this? Who told you this about me? I'm like,
right. You're like, well,
"Mm,
yeah. And I think the
yeah,
founder of SLA, his story is really interesting.
yeah. I had a person come here, and because I knew they came here for drugs and alcohol where I work, but really they their thing was slaw. I mean, big time. And I was able to be their counselor and work with them very effectively. And they started a meeting at this center that has been around and active for 11 years. And they would come for like two people. They go, well, two people are here. Let's just read the book. What are we going to do?
Oh,
But
that's
now
fantastic.
it's packed meeting. It's hybrid. People come from all over. I've noticed that in SLA around here, anywhere in Orange County, that it's difficult to find sponsors because there are so few people who stay.
Yeah, it's true. It's very hard. I could not find a sponsor. I could,
Everybody who I sponsor, they come to me for other programs. It's 90% about SLA.
I know. It's really, yeah, I remember seeing that. It's so intersectional, right? It's like they are so feeding on each other. And I
It's the
think
first thing.
you're right. And it's the first thing. And like, I've had some people say to me, my first addiction was people, for sure. And if you can really, how lucky that people today can hear that those two can be worked on at the same time.
Mm.
Because I would have loved that. I had no idea
No,
that
me either. I
the
told
two
you I
were
was nine
informing
and a
each
half
other.
years sober. I was like
Right.
sponsoring everybody in Orange County in two other programs, in AA and OA. And then I lived like married to my qualifier
Right.
and living this crazy, insane life going,
Right.
let's work the
Right.
steps on Tuesday at 3 p.m. and working at a local clinic and, just like these double life of insanity.
Yeah. And I was deep in my work as a clinical psychologist and didn't know. No
Mm,
idea. No
mm.
idea. No. I'm so grateful for all of it. I mean, I've had my own stuff with food,
Yeah,
shopping.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I just ended
Name
up
it.
saying, okay, I have an addictive personality. That's really what it is. I don't gamble. That's the only thing I have
I
no
don't
interest in.
gamble.
Not interested in that. Rather buy something.
My first husband was in the gambling industry, and we would go like on these fancy planes to Vegas. I would sit in the room, and back then you would rent movies. And he'd go,
Right.
we're all going to the tables. I'm like, it's smoky down there. I'm not going down there. And he'd
Like,
go, well, this is what we're going to spend gambling. I'd be like, I'm going shopping. I'm not giving them my money. I know the house never wins. I mean, it
that
always wins.
always wins.
I'm
Yeah.
married to somebody in the gambling industry. We live this life because we make the money. We're on the other side.
Oh, yes.
I see that none of you people are winning. Why would I want to give my money away? It's not even entertaining to me.
It's not even, it's actually kind of, I don't, yeah, I just don't, I'm the same way. But otherwise,
Anything else?
anything to medicate. So, what's been so powerful though is just to keep doing the work on all of it. Like, okay, I eventually worked on the love addiction. In, I've been with my wife now for 9.5 years. That's like a miracle beyond
Wow.
miracles. We've been married 5. Um, what? Like I couldn't get past 2.5 years, you know? And I'm not saying it's always been easy. We have definitely gone through our stuff, but we work it out. We figure it out. We want to work it out. There's like, and she also had love addiction. She has her, so she did her recovery for love addiction. So, um, that's how we met. I helped my sponsor at the time and SLA. She and I and another woman did a retreat at Sierra Center in Malibu for
Wow.
women in SLAA. And
I want to go to that.
I don't know if she does it anymore. It was so much work. It was back then when I did a lot of pro bono stuff, and I kind of cut it back because I was just working all the time. But we did this incredible retreat. It was a 3-day or like 2.5 day. And that's where I met my wife. And she was the only other lesbian there. And she like came out in her share, and I was like, oh,
Uh,
wow.
sorry, single.
Yeah, yeah. And then I was like, okay, but by then, well, I had a dating plan. So did she.
Yes, yes.
I was not scared anymore because I was following that thing. I was not going to try to figure this out on my own anymore.
That's how I was when I left my husband. I was like, I'll do anything you say. You want me? It's so funny. I always joke because I do a lot of stuff with relationships. And one of the young women in the program was at my house, and my amazing, phenomenal, like off the charts husband is cooking for all of my people in the program. He's not in the program. Well, he's in Al Anon, but he's doing all this stuff for everybody. And she's about 25, and she turns to me and she goes, I'll do anything you say.
She's like, I get it.
This is a pretty good setup.
Yeah, like, wait, how did you figure this out? Right?
Yes.
How did
Considering
you
where I come from, you
do
know.
exactly? Yeah. So that's been so I feel really good about it.
Mm.
It's been an incredible journey. I'm so grateful to be able to help people on their own journey. Um, and then, kind of look at the food stuff then too and see like, because that stopped working.
Mm.
It stopped working. The emotional eating just wasn't like, it was just making me feel sick and bad and out of control again. And I think it
Yeah.
was really kind of noticing the out of control feeling that I hated. I
Mm.
don't feel like this has a hold of me. I don't have a, hold of it. Um, and not feeling that way anymore has been huge. I actually went to a sober eating coach
Oh,
that
wow.
has a program online. She's wonderful. Her name
Oh,
is
we
Brooke.
should post that. What's it?
Yeah, she's great. You should probably have her on your
I
podcast.
would love to. What's her name?
Brooke Randolph, and it's called
Brooke Randall.
Sober and Hungry.
Mm.
And it's an online coaching program. She looked at the women who now find, have issues with emotional eating
Hmm.
and just
You
finding
know,
like,
the truth about my OA program is that I was so love addicted to my sponsor in OA. I would go back for the rest of my life. I'd go to all my meetings to be with her. And she said to me one time, she said, Deanna, you have an amazing recovery program. She said, I don't want your food plan because you've never worked on that. But you come to all the meetings and do all the work and everything. And I go, to sit by you. And I would come to the meetings when I was really, she just died, God bless her soul. She
Oh,
was my sponsor for 34 years, but
wow.
I would come to the meetings and I'd walk in and everybody'd be sitting around the table. And I'd pull a chair in between her and whoever she was sitting. I mean, I'm a teeny bit love addicted. In between her and whoever she was sitting by, and she, whoever was there would move. And I'd be like, I have to sit by Chris. Can you move? And the interesting thing is, she in about 1993-ish, she brought in, maybe a little later, she brought in Pia Melody's speech on video back in the day. And she
Oh,
wanted all her sponsees to watch it. She thought this was so fascinating, this new thing. So she says, let's watch this in the living room. So we all sit down and watch it. Guess who falls asleep?
you did.
And I said, Chrissy, I fell asleep during your movie. She goes, I noticed.
Wonder what that means.
It's too much. I'm
You
not
sound
gonna.
like you were a lot of fun to go to meetings with, though. You're like sitting there, like scooting your chair and saying, like, by the way, I'm sitting here. Just so everyone knows, because this is my sponsor. I
Oh
love
yeah,
that.
yeah, it was super fun. But I do think that's what got me come and good. Thank God it did.
Yeah, because it helped you.
hmm And
Yeah.
she was always really clear on boundaries, and she like held the line for me, like you know. But
And she was also unavailable, which was part of your whole thing at that time, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Always interesting to see that piece.
Right. Say more.
Well, whenever we're finding ourselves really drawn to someone that's not available, like what is that exposing?
Mm,
What is that saying that's unhealed inside of you? You
mm,
know? And that's the kind of like deep work I like to do with my clients is really go
mm,
deep. Like, you know, once you kind of take out the major issues that are going on, whether it's a major mental health thing or a major addiction or what have you, and you sort of settle through that and you kind of get some nice baseline going, then we do the fine tuning.
mm,
Then let's look at like, so because I think my real passion is helping everyone really rise to their full potential
mm,
and really self-actualize and find a way to live where you're happy much of the time
mm,
and you feel internally liberated.
mm.
You don't feel bogged down by
Or trapped.
or trapped by things like, trauma or unhealed wounds or parts of yourself that feel, you know, jealous, envious, victimized. Those little pieces like that IFS stuff, internal family systems
Mm.
and parts therapy, which I love, like getting
I
in,
love.
like what part right now is showing up and trying to run the show because those parts are always really young and they actually shouldn't be running the show.
My sponsor will say, like, I'll just be ranting and raving about everybody I hate and how annoyed I am. And she'll say, I'm so glad that, like, a few times I've said, God, 34 years in this program and sober, and I shouldn't be saying these things. And she says, honey, that piece just needed a voice. It's done now. It got its say, and now you can move on. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That piece wanted a voice, that everything
That
is stupid. I hate that person's haircut. And, you know, just like, it's
and
just
they're
you.
annoying me
Yes.
and I'm aggravated today.
Yes.
Yes. All of those things. It's just
And,
that and creating that awareness around that too
mm,
is so huge. That
mhm,
sort of zooming out and going, oh, who's here right now and why?
mm. And what
And
do they
why?
need?
And what do they need?
Mm,
Yeah, the inner child work, right? Which I love
mhm.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what do you think that something that you really believe in recovery that maybe a lot of people don't about
That's
recovery?
about recovery.
Hmm.
Um, well, I mean, I think like, I just celebrated 25 years of sobriety.
Wow. Congratulations.
It seems really, it was like a nice,
Felicidades.
thank you. It was a really interesting number. It very much impacted me. And when I went and got my chip and stood up, I realized that I owe my life to AA, but I also owe it to a lot of my therapy. And
Mhm.
I mean, I had so much to heal. I went and got my PhD in clinical psychology. You know, you did too, right?
I
Like
was sidey.
society, but like just all of it
Mhm.
has been a part of my past, all of it. And
Mhm.
I just, I'm so grateful to be in the position to live in a part of the world where I actually can access this and do this kind of work to really thrive. And then, part of my passion and my path and my calling is then to pass on what I can, in ways that I can. And that's what I think maybe isn't talked about as much. I
Like
understand
the whole picture.
the whole picture. Yeah.
Well, I believe that addiction is a biopsychosocial spiritual disease. And so, like, what am I addressing today for biopsych social spiritual? Now, I believe that the thing that I like the most about 12-step programs is it does address a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, it does. I
If
agree.
you really pay attention to what the literature says,
Yeah,
and it also says if you need outside help, get it.
exactly.
Like all those things, So I like the way it is inclusive of all of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I've always been interpreted that way. I just know it
Mhm.
hasn't always been interpreted
I
that way.
agree. I agree. And I do believe that historically 12-step programs might have demonized like psychiatric medications and but if you read the literature,
It doesn't do that at
that's
all.
not a
No,
thing. No.
no,
No.
no. Yes. Yeah, and I think it's gotten better, but I remember when I
Yes.
was first in my master's
Right.
program and some gal came up to me and said, my sponsor told me to get off my bipolar meds, and she was like bouncing the room. And I was like, okay, this is
What
getting
medical school did your sponsor go to?
right. This is getting dangerous,
Hmm.
like, so, but no, I agree. There is a holistic approach. And if you see any of the movies on Bill W.,
Hmm.
he was definitely doing a lot of different things to
Hmm.
improve himself. And so, yeah.
What is a question that I didn't ask you that you wished I had? And how would you answer it? How would you answer it?
Oh, let's see.
She is amazing. We love you. She's adorable.
Oh, thank you. I think you're amazing. You and your producer are amazing too.
Thank you.
I don't know. I mean, I think you've been asking amazing, fun questions. I love talking to you. I could talk for like hours. I can
Me
tell
too.
right
Me too.
now.
Yeah.
Um, I think, basically a big part of my journey and what I like to bring to my work when when it's appropriate is my spiritual work has been
Mm.
a huge part of my life. And for a long time as a clinical psychologist and getting my clinical psychology license, I like was in the closet about that.
Mm.
And I had to really like push myself to say like, okay, I can talk about this. It's okay if that's not really part of what that licensing structure is or
Mm.
institution, but like it's essential for me. And so I started looking into Buddhism and all kinds of
Mm.
Eastern philosophies and meditating at the get like 25 years ago. And
Wow.
sort of awakening work and non-dual work and sort of like
Mm.
finding, I mean, so when the pandemic started, I had this calling to renew my inner work, my spiritual work. And so I started a book club with some friends online during the pandemic, and we read all of Eckhart Tolle stuff, A New Earth and The Power of Now. We read Untethered Soul and really started looking at like how to get in the present moment, how
Wow.
to not be totally ruled by the mind that is programmed to think
Hmm.
constantly,
Hmm.
but how can we have these moments of being in the now? And it set me on this whole trajectory that's been incredibly fascinating. So I can talk about that for hours as well,
Mm.
Deanna.
My doctoral supervisor leads a Buddhist group, and she went to Japan to be trained for it.
Wow. And
And
what tradition in Zen?
mhm, I
Mm.
think I don't want to say that for
Yeah.
sure, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But I've been to it a few times, and it's really powerful.
Yeah. I don't, I ended up on like 10 silent meditation retreats.
Wow.
So, yeah. And those were extremely powerful.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't do that as much anymore because you can just kind of do it from your home if you want to
Mm,
online. There's a lot of
mm,
groups out there that are really great.
mhm.
Oh,
Who do you think we should interview next?
I was thinking Brooke Randolph actually
Okay,
and
I'm
her
gonna.
great program.
Okay, everybody, we asked that at the end, towards the end of the interview, and then we like another person was asking me, how do you guys get your guests? And I said we don't like go after people. We just ask people at the end, who do you want us to interview? Like for example, I was just saying. We interviewed Margaret Cho, and I said, "Who should we interview next?" And she said, "Oh, my best friend."
Uh,
He is a designer. He designs like clothing for movies and stuff. And so I said, okay. But he's really strong in recovery. So I said, hey, do you want to be on my podcast? And he's like, I'm not famous. And I'm like, I know, but Margaret Cho said you're the next person, and we're just following whatever the door opens. And so he was like, this is weird. You want me to be on your I'm like, yes, you have to be on our podcast. So it was pretty funny.
I love it. I love how you get people. I think it's such a great idea.
Isn't it fun? You just like,
Yes.
who's going to be next?
Well, and I didn't actually think I was going to suggest her. So I'm so glad that that's what came up because
Hmm.
that's who I'm supposed to suggest.
Yes, for sure.
And
I
that's
am
wonderful.
so excited that we got to interview you, and I hope I didn't talk too much and I let you talk a lot because your work is so incredible.
Thank you so much, Dana. I'm so grateful to be here. I love it. I love to talk. So, um, and I think you're a great interviewer.
Thank you.
I had a blast.
It's fun, huh?
Yeah, totally. And
It's fun.
I bet you're really fun to hang
I
out
am a
with,
super
actually.
fun person
Yeah, yeah.
most of the time, but I'm such a crazy introvert. Like I just want to like hide under the covers 90% of the day. But the times when I'm out, I'm like loving life. It's super. My husband, okay, so I have a client and my husband works here and she says, hey, Deanna is the best marriage therapist we've ever seen. We've have gone from place to place and like she just really gets it. And he goes, what happens on that drive home? We only live 5 minutes away from it's, I was like, oh my God, he gets the side of me that's like, I'm going under the covers. I already gave it all away. And you just have to like make dinner for everybody and figure this all out.
You know what?
That little short drive.
What we do is hard. It can zap energy. I'm an introvert too, and I'll come out from a long day, um, and I'll say,
Nothing.
I've got nothing. I don't want to talk. I've been listening and talking all day. It's powerful. I love it, but I don't want to talk anymore. So I think that's really understandable. And I'm an introverted extrovert. In other words, I'm a
Yes.
total introvert. But when I do need community. I need
Yes.
friends. I need social interactions. But I can't do it all the time either.
Okay, this is my last question. What is your Myers-Briggs?
I'm an INFP.
I'm an INFP in the world and an INFJ at work.
Oh, well, that's cool. I could
Yeah,
say I'm an INFJ at work.
I've
Yeah.
always been
How else
an
do you get stuff
INF.
done? How else
I've
do you
always
get
been
stuff
an
done?
INFP, and then in grad school they do like the crazy test where hours and hours of figuring out, and then they come back with what you are in work and school, and it was pretty cool.
Oh wow, I never had that. I would love to do that. That's so cool. I
It was
think
fun.
I must be an INFJ at work too, because I'm pretty perfectionistic, pretty
Mm,
organized.
mm,
You should see me go over editing my books. It's nuts. So yeah, I get that. I get that. But an INFP, that's a cool one,
mm.
right?
We're the sweet ones. Only
Yes.
10% of the population. My sponsor's INFP.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are the sweet ones. Often very misunderstood as children.
Mm.
Yeah.
Trying to fit in that e world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Well,
thank you so much. If there's ever anything we can do for you, please reach out. We would love to be of service to you.
thank you so much for inviting me. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Stating the obvious with New Method Wellness.